Hey everyone, so let's go ahead and work a little bit more with functions with outputs so you get a better understanding of how do they actually work. So if you remember, we talked about the length function in the previous lesson, and I mentioned that that function, the reason that we can actually use it to determine the length of something, for example, length equals len, and then we can put, like, for example, hello in here, and we can actually print the length, is because we actually have a function. The length function is a function that has an output, right? It has a return value. So with that being said, let's go ahead and actually create something. For example, let's say I want to create a function that is going to clean up first name and last name. For example, if you think about it, when someone enters their name, for example, in my case, I could maybe enter all lowercase, or for example, I could maybe enter it like this, or like, all sorts of mistakes can happen, like in the way that is like the casing of it. So let's create a function that is going to turn it all into a clean, like this, to like, it capitalizes the first letter, and then it's going to just put like, and for same thing for the last name, just capitalizes the first and last name. And the way we do this, we're going to create a function, all right? And what we want is that we want to create an output for this, by the way, so we can actually use it. Now, let's go ahead and create this step by step so I can actually, again, show you the differences of a function with and without an output. So we're going to define a function. We're going to call this, for example, format name, and let's just open the close the parentheses, and there you go. So the way you usually do this is, by the way, we're going to use a new function, okay, called the title function. The idea with the title function is that you can literally, lowercase and uppercase something using Python. So this is how the title function works in Python. If I actually look it up, there you go. So again, this is the title function, returns a string where the first character every word is uppercase. So again, it's a pretty useful thing, and it essentially, again, it's going to allow you to, make everything uppercase, essentially, or the first letter of that string uppercase. And it's used heavily for, like, titles and, like, first name, last name, and all that stuff. So usually what we do is we're going to say print if name, or let's actually add some values to this. All right, so for example, I'm going to say first name, last name. So these are the first name, last name that user is going to input. These are the parameters, right? The inputs of this function. So we're going to say if name, and we're going to say title, and just like that, we can actually turn this into uppercase, or like, we can turn the first letter into uppercase, and same thing for the last name. So just like that, we have this function up and running. So all I got to do right now is just print this. So I'm just going to say, we're going to call the function. We're going to format name, and we're going to, for example, enter my name and last name weirdly. So I'm just going to say Sean, like that, and last name. There you go. So like really, really weird stuff, right? So if I print this, so if you run this, what we're going to get is my first and last name cleaned up. Now here's a problem. As as I mentioned, this is a function with, inputs, but we don't have any outputs. Essentially, we cannot assign this into a variable and use it throughout our program. So if I want to, like, call this output, or let's say a full name, I can't do that. If I call this, it's not going to work. Well, let's actually, for example, print full name. If I do this, there you go, it's not going to run, because again, it doesn't have an output. This function is a function without any output. So the way we actually do this is that we need to create a function with an output, and let's go ahead and actually do this. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So we're going to create two variables. I'm going to say formatted name equals if name and title. So that way, again, we clean it up. Formatted lname equals lname title. And just like that, we have our function. Now let's actually print this. So we're going to print, and if I actually, again, we're not going to use an output right now, but if I, for example, do this, print formatted first name, There we go. And let's give it some space, and then we're going to say formatted last name. And here we go. So if I print this, we're essentially going to get, you know, let's actually print this. There you go. So if I actually do this, we're going to get full name and run this. Let's just get rid of this. All right, there you go. If you run this, what is going to happen is that we're going to get a print, and it's going to say again Sean Bigari. There you go. So we got our full name and printed right here. And again, same problem as before is that we're not going to have an output here, right? This doesn't work out. So for example, we can't call you know, print output. This, it just doesn't work like that. You know, it doesn't, it shows us a none. So the way we do this is that we use the return, you know, keyword as mentioned before. So we're just going to say return, and we're just going to get rid of these parentheses, and just like that, we're going to be able to return a function. So if I print this, we're going to print a return of this, you know, a function. So if I run this, it's going to work. Or actually, F, there you go. I forgot about that. All right, so now it actually is supposed to work. There you go. See, so we finally got a Sean Bigari, but this time this is actually printed because we have an output printed. So again, this is the idea with a function that, you know, the function with an output, you can actually use it to return value, and you can actually use it to get its value and use it somewhere else, like the length function that we did. All right, so I hope this makes sense, and I hope this was helpful, guys. We're going to continue talking about functions with outputs. Specifically, I want to talk about functions with multiple return values, so, or multiple you know, outputs essentially. So we've talked about, you know, functions with, you know, just simple functions. We talked about functions with multiple inputs, and now we want to talk about functions with multiple outputs as well, because that's another important concept that you want to understand. So let me know if you have any questions about this, guys. Again, it's a pretty simple concept. You just, you know, having a return or having an output in a function allows you to use it as a variable throughout your code. So that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.